In a story that has made national news, a landlord who disappeared is suspected to have had her life taken by her husband so that he could inherit $3 million worth of real estate. I'm Tony, and this is Real Estate Investing and Landlord News. All right, so I have an interesting article for you today, and it's going over the disappearance of this lady named Ana Walshe. Now, what people are suspecting is that she owned a whole bunch of real estate. Okay, she was very successful real estate investor, and she was a landlord. And they think that her husband took her life because of that, because he wanted her money. Okay, he wanted to get his hands on the property that she owned and that she had, just accumulated over the course of years. Right, she was doing pretty good as a real estate investor and owned about $3 million worth of real estate. So they think that part of the reason why he took her life was because he wanted to get that property. So this is quite an interesting story. I don't usually cover this sort of topic because it's a downer. It's a downer reading about people who lost their lives and crime and all of that sort of thing. And I deal with that at work every day, being a law enforcement officer. But I thought this was interesting because it did have a interesting cross in between crime and real estate investing. So I wanted to bring this article to you. And hey, watch out for your spouse, because who knows what they're thinking. Just kidding. But anyway, before I get into the article, go ahead, hit the like and subscribe button, leave a comment down below. Let me know what you think, okay? Do you believe that, part of the reason this lady's life was taken was due to the fact that she, owned this large amount of real estate? She was quite wealthy, and her husband wanted to get, access to those funds and to that property. Do you think that her being a landlord ultimately led to her demise, and I'm just curious what people think of this case in general. I know it has made national news, so a lot of people have already formed their opinions on what happened and what didn't happen, and we know that her husband has been arrested, but innocent until proven guilty. We don't know all of the story just yet, but things do not look good for him. So anyway, let's get into the article and see what it says. This article is coming from the New York Post, and it says, Ana Walshe amassed $3 million property portfolio that husband Brian was eager to inherit, Internet history reveals. All right, so let's get into the story. Hopefully they have a few more details that, will let us know exactly what's going on here. Ana Walshe had amassed a property portfolio worth $2.8 million at the time of her disappearance, which her husband's internet search history showed he was looking forward to getting his hands on. Brian Walshe was charged with his wife's murder this week, and at his arraignment at Quincy District Court in Massachusetts on Wednesday, it was revealed he had Googled how long for someone to be missing to inherit, among other damning searches. Brian pleaded not guilty to murdering his wife, but a wealth of evidence is mounting against him. Although it is said that they had amassed a collection of homes and rental properties together, records viewed by the Post show all of them were in her name only. Now, I don't know how it works when you're married and you purchase a property, right? But at least where I invest, when I purchase a property, my wife has to sign as well, okay? So all of the property records for all the properties I own under my personal name also have my wife's name listed, right? And if I was to sell the properties, both of us have to sign for it. So, in the case of a divorce, essentially we both own all of our properties. So it doesn't matter if, just her name is on the deed even, still he would have some vested interest in those properties. Now, I don't know how it works in the states where this lady was investing, but, I know that's not the case everywhere. So, you'd have to look into your own local laws to see if that's the case. Ana, 39, had been associated with 8 properties in Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Massachusetts since 2018. 4 she had sold and 4 she owned at the time she disappeared, with a current market value totaling $2.8 million. In addition, Ana, who had 3 sons with Brian, all under age 6, was the family's breadwinner, commuting to Washington, D.C., where she was a property manager for real estate giant Tishman Speyer. Meanwhile, Brian was under house arrest after he pleaded guilty to federal fraud charges in 2021 for selling fake Andy Warhol paintings for $8,000 on eBay. He had also been accused by friends of his neurosurgeon father of stealing from his estate after his death, although he maintained he and his son were the only rightful heirs to his will. So yeah, the guy already is known to be, kind of a scam artist. He was selling fake paintings, and had been convicted of it, and he was on house arrest. So his wife Anna, was the only one who was making any money, and she was a property manager for looks like down in Washington D.C. for a large real estate company. So she's a property manager. She also owns a great deal of real estate herself. She's just basically average landlord. Now, she didn't own that many properties really, but they had a pretty high value probably because of where they were located. So it says that she owned 4 properties and it recently sold another 4 properties, and they were worth $3 million. So yeah, you do the math. Those were quite expensive properties that she owned, okay? But yeah, it looks like he, being a kind of a scam artist, wanted to get, at least that's what the theory is. He wanted to get access to these properties so that he could get money. Anna's property deals were going on right up until she went missing. Less than a week before she was reported missing by her employer, Anna closed a deal on December 29th and sold an apartment in Revere, Massachusetts, outside Boston. The place sold for $220,000, 60% more than the $137,000 she bought it for in 2020. The tenants of that apartment, Mike and Mandy Silva, had previously told the Post they felt they were hurried out of the property and it had been sold without them being properly informed after they had rented it for 4 years. They had worked for the couple on their properties and said Anna wore the pants in the family, while Brian presented himself as an investor but would have a robe on in his house the whole time. Well, obviously she was the one who worked in property management. She worked in the real estate industry, so she's going to present herself as knowing a lot more about what's going on than he did, right? Now, is he an equal investor? Possibly, okay? But, it's kind of like with me and my wife, right? I know a lot more about real estate than my wife does, right? But she actually is a real estate investor as well. She's more of a passive investor because she is passively, investing while I am the active investor, looking for the deals, making sure all of the repairs, etc. are done, buying and selling the properties. I'm the one who initiates almost everything, but she is more of a passive investor. So, I like I said, I don't know how the law works up in these places, if they own property in Massachusetts and Washington, D.C., but, it's very likely that whether he's listed on the title or the deeds of these properties or not, he still was part owner of them just by the fact that they were married, okay? In March, the budding real estate tycoon sold $1 million house she owned in Massachusetts and bought a house in D.C. worth about the same. The house she owned in Cohasset, Massachusetts, the town where she lived with her husband and children, sold for $1.385 million in less than 2 months on the market. It boasts 5 bedrooms and 4 bathrooms and had been purchased in 2020 for $800,000, records show. Wow, that's a pretty good, they made over $500,000 in 2 years. So, I mean, that's a pretty good investment right there. Obviously Massachusetts property values, they're pretty high, right? And they benefit by all of the appreciation that they get as well. Now, like I said, I don't know what's going on in this case. We're going to have to wait until the trial before a lot of these details come out. We find out, what the motives were or if this guy is even truly guilty, right? And I like to say innocent until proven guilty. Things don't look good for him, though. The evidence is pointing towards that he possibly is, to blame for his wife losing her life and for her disappearing. So, until the trial comes out, we don't know what the true motives were or if this guy is guilty or not. So, we'll just have to wait and see. But for now, it's interesting to read that, this lady who lost her life was a landlord, was a real estate investor, like the people who watch this channel. And, I feel bad for her children, especially because now they don't have a mom.